Okay, guys, today we're diving into reflective practice and performance evaluation. I think these two concepts are really linked, do you? Reflective practice is about looking back at what we've done, identifying what worked and what didn't, and then figuring out how we can improve. But performance evaluation is that structured feedback we get from others, like teachers or colleagues. It gives us concrete areas to focus on. So, what do you think? How do these two work together to help us grow?
I agree with you, Rochelle. Reflective practice is like self-assessment. We check our own progress, right? But performance evaluation adds that external perspective. For example, if we get feedback from a teacher, it might show us things we didn't notice ourselves. It's full circle process where we reflect and then get feedback to adjust our approach. It's kind of like coaching yourself and getting a coach at the same time. So, how can feedback from others help us recognize blind spots in our self-assessment? Any ideas?
That's a great question. I think feedbacks help by revealing things we might be unaware of, like habits we might not see. For instance, I once thought I was doing great on a group project, but then a peer pointed out I wasn't giving enough space for others to contribute. It made me realize that sometimes I dominate discussions, so feedback helps us spot those hidden issues that we can't see ourselves. How can we use peer feedback more effectively to improve our group work performance?
Exactly. It's important to not just receive feedback but to really use it. We should take the time to reflect on the feedback we get and identify areas to work on. Peer feedback is really valuable in this, especially since peers understand the challenges of the task. But to use it effectively, we need to set clear, achievable goals. Like, if I get feedback that I need to manage my time better, I could set a goal to create a schedule before each project starts. That's why I have a concrete plan to improve. What do you think is more helpful? General feedback or feedback that's specific and tied to actionable goals?
Good question, Rochelle. I think specific feedback is way more helpful. For example, instead of just saying you need to improve, if the feedback is try to focusing on your clarity when explaining concepts, then I know exactly what to work on. It makes goal setting easier too because you're clear about what needs to change. So, how can we make sure the goals we set from feedback are specific and achievable?
That's where SMART goals come in: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. Goals are the key. If the feedback says I need to be more concise in presentations, a SMART goal might be by the end of the semester, I'll reduce my presentation time by 5 minutes and practice clarity by recording myself. It's actionable, measurable, and we can track progress. So, what challenges might arise when setting SMART goals based on feedback, and how can we improve them?
I think one challenge could be making sure that goals are achievable. Sometimes when we get feedback, it might sound like we need to change everything at once, but that's overwhelming. A way to overcome that is by breaking down the feedback into smaller, more manageable goals, like instead of changing everything about my presentation style, I could work on one aspect at a time, like improving clarity first, then tone. How do you think feedback from students can impact in an education performance?
Student feedback is huge. Teachers can use it to see if they're connecting with students and explaining concepts clearly. It helps them adjust their methods to make learning more effective. If students say a certain teaching style isn't working, it can push teachers to innovate and find better ways to engage their class. What would be a fair way to gather student feedback without making students feel uncomfortable or pressured?
I think it's important to make feedback anonymous. so students can be honest without worrying about it affecting their grade. Also, it should be structured so that it's clear and not just vague comments. If we give students clear criteria to evaluate, like organization of the lesson or clarity of instructions, it gives them a way to provide more thoughtful and actionable feedback. How can peer evaluations contribute to a more supportive learning environment?
Peer evaluations can create a culture of collaboration where everyone feels comfortable giving or receiving feedback. When we provide constructive criticism to our peers, it helps them grow, but it also forces us to reflect on our work too. So, it's not just about improving others, it's about improving ourselves as well. How can peer evaluations be used effectively in a team setting, especially if some members are more critical than others?
I think it's more important to set guidelines for peer evaluations so that everyone knows how to give constructive feedback. If the evaluation is focused on specific positive points and suggestions for improvement rather than just pointing out flaws, it'll be more helpful and less discouraging. How can formative evaluations like quizzes or assignments help us improve our teaching methods before the end of the course?
Formative evaluations are super helpful because they give us feedback during the process. We can adjust our teaching right away, whether it's providing extra practice or explaining something in a different way. It's like an ongoing conversation where both students and teachers learn together. So the question is, do you think summative evaluations like final exams are still relevant in the learning process?
Summative evaluations are important for measuring overall progress, but I think they should be used alongside formative assessments. A final exam can tell us where we stand overall, but it doesn't give the kind of detailed, actionable feedback that help us improve along the way. So, both types of evaluations are needed. What would happen if we only use summative evaluations and ignored formative feedback?
If we only relied on summative evaluations, we'd miss out on chances to improve during the process. A final exam might show that a student didn't understand a topic, but they might have been able to understand it earlier if they had received regular feedback. It's a missed opportunity for improvement. So, how can educators create a balance between formative and summative assessments to ensure both ongoing learning and final achievement?
Educators can combine both types of evaluation by giving feedback after each formative assessment, then using summative assessments to measure how well the learning has been retained. It ensures that students are always improving and getting clear feedback, but still having a final measure of their progress at the end.